Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. Thankfully, we're not in hurricane season right now, but it's never too early to start preparing and looking back at the last couple of years we've been through, specifically around the Gulf Coast, from Florida to Louisiana to Texas. It's been a rough couple of years here. Some folks that are really helping out with recovery and different ways to help and bring a lot of things together is the St. Bernard Project, or we should call them SBP, and they are here in studio with us, or a couple of their executive director is. Kenneth Morgan is the executive director of SBP, and Kristen Emmett is the community engagement manager. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I think you said you started St. Bernard Project, SBP now. So yeah, we want to get that right. First of all, tell me what it is and why is somebody from St. Bernard Parish now in Terrebonne Parish?
Yeah, so we started in St. Bernard Parish, as you mentioned, right after Hurricane Katrina, a few months after, so in 2006. What happened was our founders, two individuals, came down to volunteer. They just wanted to come down and support. But what they found was no real organization, no one really helping to facilitate volunteers. They ended up in St. Bernard Parish where they knocked on the doors and asked people if they could help them. What they found was a community that was really, really resilient. They were like, we're gonna do this ourselves. The government had deemed them 100% uninhabitable. And so FEMA didn't support, their insurance didn't support, but they decided they were gonna rebuild on their own. And so our founders just got a bunch of volunteers and started to rebuild homes in St. Bernard Parish. We did it with those homeowners, just helped them, and we together rebuilt that community and started to expand outside of St. Bernard Parish into New Orleans, into the Lower Ninth Ward, and so on, and have helped communities. And eventually, decided that we needed to grow, right? That there was a need other places. And so we started to go to other communities outside of Louisiana and eventually rebranded ourselves to SBP so that we would be a national organization.
Right.
What brought us here to the Bayou region, as we call it, is Hurricane Ida. Right, Hurricane Ida hit on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and devastated this community.
August 29th.
August 29th, we know that date well. And it devastated the community. And so since then, we've been here helping families rebuild and working within government, helping people prepare for the next storm and trying to bring additional dollars in.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you got to keep moving on. You said you got 7 chapters now. You're in Lake Charles, in Florida. They're in a lot of different areas. But, there is a need. And I think we're a little better than we were when Katrina hit, especially St. Bernard Parish, because, that was like 100% floods in St. Bernard Parish, and the attention as a big city would be was New Orleans, and St. Bernard kind of got left out. So did Bay St. Louis and some of those other areas as well. So it's a great way to help out. Kristen, you're from Seattle, Washington. Appreciate you coming down and helping out. What got you down here, and what does the community engagement manager do at SBP?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have been in New Orleans for about 10 years now. But my passion for this work came actually from experiencing Ida myself and realizing, driving back and forth from Lafayette to bring supplies back to New Orleans, that there were a number of people off of I-90 that weren't getting the media attention that New Orleans got after Ida, that they wouldn't get the resources that New Orleans would get, and they wouldn't get the long-term recovery. So I started working directly with our clients to help them through the application process, to help connect them with our FEMA appeals team, to maximize their awards with FEMA, and just to really get them the support that they need to rebuild their homes.
Yeah, it's a great way. It's no Mount St. Helens here, but, we do have our share of storms. It's a little lower altitude. So, Kenneth, we were talking, so there's 5 pillows. Can you run through those 5 pillows of what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, over the years, we've learned so much, right? And so we have expanded into what we call our 5 interventions. And the first one is build, right? And that's what we were founded on. rebuilding homes after disaster, building new affordable housing, and really helping to rebuild the community. And so that's what we were founded as. But we realized that we needed to have a greater impact. And so we started what we call our SHARE program. And so we wanted to help other organizations and other nonprofits learn from us and get the funding that we were getting, because we were receiving a number of funding opportunities. And so we were passing that on to other folks to help. And what we saw, particularly after Hurricane Ida, is our organization ourselves, we were able to support a little close to 80 families after Hurricane Ida rebuilt their homes. But because of SHARE, we were able to help, with the help of our partners, 486 families returned home after Hurricane Ida. And so it proved to be completely successful. Not only were we doing that, but we decided we needed to go to government and advocate, right? What we saw, and Kristen alluded to, is people were getting underfunded for FEMA. They were not getting the resources. It was a complicated process to even apply for FEMA. So we started to advocate for change and started to advocate for one application for people to apply to get resources. Then we started to implant ourselves in government. We have a fellow here in New Orleans, Elizabeth Dango, who is working with the Terrebonne Parish government to advise them on better ways of spending their resources, helping them find resources. And so we were advising individuals there, but then preparing folks. We have to prepare people for the storm. We have to get folks ready now for hurricane season by telling them what to do, what resources they need, where to get help. And so those are the 5 ways we have been really working in these communities.
Yeah, and that all goes hand in hand, and you know, being prepared and being weather wise and knowing, you know, how to build your stuff so you're not getting washed away every time there's a tropical storm that comes in here. So you guys have taken some pictures. You guys have been in the community for a while. We're gonna run through some slides and take a look at some of the work you're doing. Obviously, it starts with a roughed up area, and then we'll see kind of how y'all helping to do things together. So, Kristen, you want to take us through some of these slides?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So you can kind of see the before photo in the person's hand, and then the after photo. This is Miss Ophelia's house. And so you'll see, you know, she didn't have a roof on when we first met her. And so we pulled off all of the sheetrock and drywall and everything like that, and really gutted the house. We do mold remediation as well to all of these homes. If they need to be pulling up the flooring, we'll be doing that. You can see the blue tarp with all of the, you know, sunlight coming through. And, you know, you probably know somebody with who experienced the damages that we're kind of showing. So it's not going to be super surprising to see some of these for some of y'all. But, you know, we help the families really remove all of these precious belongings.
Yeah,
And
see your mold.
yeah, it can be an emotional experience for folks. A lot of these homes are multi-generational. So it was grandma's home. It holds a lot of memories. This is where y'all have, you know, your family gatherings. And
Sometimes a paid-for house that doesn't have insurance either. So, yeah, you need help rebuilding that. For sure.
absolutely. And so we'll help them through that whole process of, you know, removing the contents and, you know, salvaging what and where we can. But a lot of times it is going to be, especially with this home that we're looking at the photos of right now, we had to do a full remodel of this one. So every single room in the home was touched.
Yeah, there's no roof.
Yeah.
So,
We saw that a lot during
Yeah,
Ida.
absolutely.
Unlike Katrina, the water came in from the bottom during Katrina, but for Ida, the wind was
Wind,
so
the wind
hard
event.
that it ripped the roof off of a lot of these houses. And when the roof went off and the rain came down,
Right.
the water got into the house anyway, and
Right.
it still flooded them. And so you do see the mold, and you do see the sheetrock and the flooring all being destroyed.
and this is that same house after you guys did some remediation, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
the mold mediation and pulling everything out.
So, no, I was just about to say that. Some of those houses in like Lakeview almost melted because they were just had water that was flooded, you know? Completely different thing than what this is. This was a roof event, a wind event, for sure. But you could see, man, you're cleaning it up, and these folks, obviously, you're gonna have to put another roof on there, but now you're gonna be able to live there. Now, this is a different house or the same house?
So this is a different home, but this is the standard with which we do build back to.
Nice.
And it's not just rebuilding the house. We are working to rebuild these homes more resiliently so
Right.
that they can withstand future storms. So that includes things like a fortified roof, so that can withstand
The hurricane straps.
exactly.
You know,
And so strapping the whole house down so that they hopefully never have to deal with the same type of damage.
Yeah, and again, what you were talking about is that, you know, after Hurricane Katrina, they did started making houses where you had to put straps in the rafters and all that. But a lot of these houses were made way before that, so they didn't have those kind of things. And yeah, it does make a big difference. I think now we go to 6 nails per shingle. It used to be 4. So that's going to make a difference when everybody losing shingles. My house lost shingles, and then the water got in. But the roof didn't fly off, but the roof did, the shingles did. So that's how you get water in your house. And
Yeah,
your sheetrock is
we
not
proved
waterproof.
that there's a better way of building during Hurricane Ida. So right before Hurricane Ida, we were building some houses to this new fortified standard. And when Ida hit, we went back to those same houses to see how they withstood the storm, and they had a piece of awning that had blew off. Everything else stood strong. That house did not get any water. And so we were really proud of that.
Right.
And when we moved here to Southeast Louisiana, decided we had to do the same thing here. These are generational homes. We know that another storm is coming. We know that these people own their houses, and some of them, as you mentioned, don't have the insurance and don't have the funding to build back. And it's more expensive to build back to that
Oh,
new
yeah,
standard.
yeah.
It's so much expensive.
Finding people to do it.
Finding
Yeah.
people to do it who are qualified to do it.
Right.
And so we brought our resources here, and we want to make sure that we're rebuilding these homes where they're able to stay in people's families and stay generational homes for years to come, and they feel safe in these homes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that's a big part of rebuilding. We don't want to keep doing it over and over and over again, And look, if I'm the government, if I'm FEMA, I don't want to keep paying for it over and over again, right? We got to raise or we've built levees, and I think that's done a good job with the flooding, but. When you get a Cat 4 or 5 that comes down Barrow Street here, it's not going to help out. So that's a big part. Talking about advocacy, and that's a big part of it too. So you'll spend a lot of time in Baton Rouge. That's basically lobbying, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have some team in Baton Rouge, but we also are in DC.
Okay.
One of the biggest things that we're advocating for now is it's really complicated to file for FEMA. It's really complicated
Yeah.
to file for funding. And so
Insurance is fun too.
insurance, yeah, all of it, right? And so what we're trying to do is, can there be one simple app, one process, one application where people can go and apply and they can get help? And how do we make sure funding is given to them in a timely fashion? And so that's just partly what we're advocating about is we know that another disaster is coming. How do we make sure people are prepared for it?
You can't wait till August 28th to get ready for storm season, right? So, hey, Kristen, tell me a little bit more about, there's 5 pillars of different things to build, to share, advocacy, the advise, and the prepare. So I think we've talked about a few of the things. The advise, what does that entail?
Yeah, that's really about getting folks into the government spaces and having these conversations early and often. Like you said, you can't wait until the day before a storm happens for us to get ready and know that we have these systems in place to help the people who need it most. One of the things that we say often is that we're trying to shrink the time between disaster and recovery so that people can return home back to their normal lives much sooner than they would have previously.
How do you choose who you're going to work with?
It's really first come, first serve. As soon as you can start that application process and move really quickly to be able to get them the help that they need, that's how we have to do it.
So how does people get in touch with you guys?
Oh, that's a great question. So you can either get us on our website, sbpusa.org, or you can give us a phone call at 504-460-2316.
And that would be a way to get help, but also to help if you wanted to volunteer and that kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely. So you can, if you are someone that's seeking rebuilding services, if you need help with a FEMA appeal letter, if you want to just lend a hand and show up to help your neighbor, you can get in touch with us any of those ways.
Okay. Kenneth, if my math's right, we're coming up on 18 years since since Katrina
Yeah.
in New Orleans. I think we've learned a lot from that time, I think after Katrina, the government was like, we can't do stuff like this anymore. But you said y'all were started in 2006. What has SBP learned over the numerous storms and numerous states that you guys, how do you bring everything together? What have y'all learned as an organization? Obviously, you probably learn every event how to get a little bit better, right?
Yeah, every event there's a learning lesson, right? We have learned who the players are in government, right? It's important to be able to know who those individuals are. But most importantly, we learned who are the people who need us the most, right? And so we know climate change is real, and that another storm is coming, and with each storm, it gets worse and it gets worse because people they don't have the funding to get their house to where it needs to be. They don't have the funding to fortify themselves against the next storm. And so with each storm, the house gets worse and gets worse, right? We understand that. We also understand that we now have to build back better. We cannot do the same thing that we did before. We can't just keep putting people in houses that are not perfect, right? We have to get better. And so we constantly learn lessons. We constantly know how to support people. And so 2 lessons that we recently learned after Ida is that individuals, people who are most vulnerable, were not getting the money that they deserved from FEMA. Right? I believe FEMA gave most people a little over $4,000 when their house costs about $30,000 to repair. And so what we learned is that we could appeal those FEMA decisions. And so we started a FEMA appeals program, helping people appeal their FEMA grants. And it has proven widely successful. I believe we're over $1 million in funding that has gone back into these families' hands because of our FEMA appeals program. But what we also learned in one of the photos that we showed earlier was wood is expensive. And kitchen is expensive, and replacing these things are expensive. And so we invented what we call our PVC cabinets. And so these are cabinets made from a PVC material. And so when water touches them, unlike, and there's the picture there, unlike when it touches wood swells.
Just swell, right?
They swell, and you have to replace all of it. These cabinets, you can wipe them down. And so it helps cut the cost. It mitigates a lot of the risk and a lot of the costs moving forward, and it helps families a little bit more. And so we've learned a lot of lessons that we've tried to implement into everything that we're doing.
Yeah, you can go back and look at South Louisiana before they put the levees up. There was no houses on slabs, back in, what was that, 1927 or whenever they started building this jobs program. Probably we shouldn't be on slabs here, right? We should all be raised homes here. And so it does make sense to make sure you're above the water line, that you have hurricane straps, that your roof doesn't fly off, or you use a steel roof, that kind of stuff. That's real important to learn from that and not make the same mistakes over and over again. Kristen, you're not the first group that's ever been out here saying, hey, look, we're here to help out. And how do y'all organize with all the other different groups to make sure all the resources go into the right area?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We collaborate with these other organizations so that we're not duplicating where we're serving, that we can really spread knowledge and efficiencies and help as many people at any given time that we can. It's a coordinated effort. That's a part of our SHARE program as well. So
right, that's one of your
we're
goals.
helping to fund those other organizations to give knowledge and information, any of the expertise that we've grown to learn over the years through our own challenges. We want every other organization to skip that step because we're not trying to own any space in the disaster recovery. It's really about bringing people home as quickly as we can.
No, that's great. And you talked about SHARE earlier, and that's all part of that, right? Working together and making sure we do it. So, look, what is it, May, I guess, is when hurricane season comes around. So, again, never too early to get started, but we appreciate you guys being here, man, and helps out a lot of people around here, and a bunch of parishes needed a lot of help. So we appreciate y'all being part of the fight. So
Thanks for having us.
thanks so much. It's Kenneth Morgan, Christian Emmett. We'll be right back with more Bite Time right after this.